Good evening. We're here to hold a community forum on the naming of several new schools as part of Invest in Tomorrow. We will name 4 new middle schools and 1 high school. And we're also accepting names to rename 2 already existing schools, school number 34 and school number 46. I'm Marisol Ramos Lopez, Chief of Communications and Intergovernmental Affairs, and I am your moderator this evening. As stipulated in Policy 7500, a petition has been presented to the Board of Education by school community members to change the existing names of schools 34 and 46. The requests for these name changes are supported by petitions with at least 100 community members' signatures. Please be advised that the submission of a petition does not serve to automatically change a school's name. However, it does commence the procedures established herein. The policy has several other requirements that must be met. Number 1, the superintendent or designee shall develop a timeline for recommending names to the Board of Education. The superintendent shall communicate the timeline to the Board of Education. The timeline for the naming and renaming of schools was announced at the December board meeting. Number 2, the superintendent of schools or his designee shall hold 1 or more community forums to explain the purpose and mission of the new school, facility, consolidation, programmatic change, or petition proposing the change in the school name. The district shall inform the public and media about the community forums to discuss the proposal to name or rename a school or facility. At the community forum, which is being held tonight, the superintendent shall solicit names from the public for the new or renamed school facility. The community forum is being held this evening, and we have 4 speakers scheduled to participate. We also received suggestions from 5 others. And finally, the superintendent shall recommend to the Board of Education up to 3 names for the new or renamed schools or facilities to be considered at a public meeting of the board, and that public meeting will be held on February 13th, 2024. I will now open the floor to the speakers, who will have 3 minutes to provide their recommendations and comments. Our first speaker this evening is Principal Wakili Moore.
Okay, good evening. My name is Wakili Moore, currently the principal at Monroe Lower, but I will be the new principal at the middle school on the Jefferson campus. I'm honored to bring you at least 4 suggestions right now. 3 of them I'm excited about. 1 of them I'm really, really excited about. I'll get to that in a second. The first one, Benjamin Banneker Academy, an African-American naturalist, mathematician, astronomer, and almanac author. He also made calculations that enabled him to successfully forecast the solar eclipse, which I believe is coming up this year, right? So that's the first one, Benjamin Banneker Academy. The second one, George Washington Carver Academy, also an African-American that established an agricultural extension in Alabama and founded an industrial research lab where he worked tirelessly on the development of hundreds of applications for new plants. That is George Washington Carver Academy. This next one is not a person's name. It's, if you know the Jefferson area, that is the 10th Ward historically, and I didn't check with the company, but I came up with the 10th Ward Academy Tigers. So that is something that, with the youth football program that's in that area, tied to that community. Now this last one, again, is very exciting. I finally got the blessing today to at least forward this name and suggest it. Andrew Langston Academy Tigers. Forget the tiger part for a second. Andrew Langston Academy. Andrew Langston, founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Monroe County Broadcasting Company, and of course, WDKX. He doesn't know the meaning of giving up. A born optimist. Andrew spent 6 years working with the FCC trying to secure FM frequency for 103.9 for his radio station, WDKX in Rochester, New York. Finally went on the air April 6, 1974, and is one of the first Black-owned radio stations in New York, and remains that way. It has been on the air ever since, and is the only locally owned commercial radio station in Rochester. Again, that's the Andrew Langston Academy for my fourth name. I'm probably not to say this, but that's probably my favorite right there, so just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Moore. Our next speaker is Principal Nikaya Burrows. Principal Burrows?
Good evening. I am Nikaya Burrows, current principal at Northeast High School, but the new named principal of the middle school at the Sherlock campus. And first I'll tell you about why I'm interested in the school name, and then I'll tell you what the actual name is. So when I think about all of the different things that we're discussing as a district that we want to see in our schools that make schools great, and talking about proficiency and grade level and access and opportunity, equity, strong community partners, and student voice, social justice and action, literacy, district cohesion, one RCSD. To me, that speaks to true justice, not the justice that we've seen in the past, but true justice and opportunity and access for every student, which is what we're trying to do in reimagining our district. And for me, the school name of True Justice Middle School at the Sherlock campus rings some bells. I think it holds to the tradition of Charlotte, which many people in that area, they are very adamant about the school keeping that name of Charlotte because it holds such a tradition in the city. But I think it's time for something new at the same time. So I think True Justice, either True Justice Middle School or True Justice Middle School at the Charlotte campus is a name that I would really, really like to see. So thank you for the opportunity. And on behalf of Northeast, go Bills. I just have to say that because there's a Steelers fan and principal sitting behind me. Go Bills.
Thank you, Principal Burrows. Our next speaker is Principal Gina DiTullio. Principal DiTullio.
Good evening. I'm Gina DiTullio, principal of Charles Carroll School 46. While the Carroll family played a prominent role in the founding of our beautiful city, history tells us that they were also active in the slave trade and owned thousands of slaves. In light of this, our school community would like the superintendent and the board to consider renaming our school. We would like to submit 3 names for your consideration: Austin Stewart, Bessie Ham, and Susan B. Anthony. Austin Stewart and Bessie Ham were both prominent African Americans extensively involved in providing high-quality educational experiences for African American students in Rochester. And we all know that Susan B. Anthony was a suffragist as well as an abolitionist. We felt that these 3 names, any one of these 3 names, would much more closely align with our school values. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Principal DiTullio. And our final speaker this evening is Principal Stephanie Harris. Principal Harris.
Hi, good evening. I am Stephanie Harris, proud principal now of Franklin Lower, soon to be principal at the name school at the Dr. Freddie Thomas Learning Center. Um, I actually put together a survey and surveyed people within the community, the district, our current school, families, students, and I sent that survey over so that that can be reviewed. It was too much to discuss right now. A group of us did come up with one name that we would like to propose to the board, and it is NIA. NIA meaning purpose, aim, goal, bright. It is the 5th principle of Kwanzaa. It is a Swahili word. Again, it means purpose. It talks about just building and developing our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. It just values everything that we stand for in students, giving everyone a purpose, all of us developing our purpose and developing for the greater need of the community, whether it be financial, educational, strength, It is around building success and future among the Black community. So that is what I'm proposing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Principal Harris.
I forgot one thing, I'm sorry. So the one thing I forgot was that once we do get into school, we do have some acronyms that align with the NIA. So that is important because we like our school community to have voice and come up with those things. But the overall term would be NIA.
Excellent. That sounds very exciting. We do not have any more speakers who signed up this afternoon. However, the superintendent would like to open it up to anyone else who may have a suggestion or would like to provide some names.
Good evening. I am Monique Silas Lee, proud principal, Dr. Charles D. Lunsford, School Number 19, and currently the principal of 200 Genesee Street. Our school community would like to propose the name of Loretta Johnson. Loretta Johnson was the first female leader of the Rochester City School District in the year 94, 95. She was passionate about everything education and students. Our school will exemplify all that she stood for and serve her proud as well as the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Silas Lee. Is there anyone else who would like to bring a name forward? Seeing as we have no other speakers, this community forum is closed. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole. This evening, I am Commissioner Simmons and will serve as the committee chair. I'm going to jump right in and open up the meeting. We're going to start with our speakers list. My understanding is we do not have speakers present or signed up to address the board this evening. So next order of business will be to review and accept the minutes from the December 12th ESA meeting. May I have a motion to accept those minutes? Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Commissioner Patterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and before we jump into our first presentation, I have to represent and I have to just shout out the sweet ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Happy Founders Day, sorors. And moving forward into the board business, we have a great presentation. I've been able to experience this presentation firsthand at a recent literacy conference under the direction of Keisha James. This evening, we have Keisha James and Shane Wiegand. Am I saying your name correct, Shane? Because I want to call you Weigland. Shane Wiegand. Keisha, she put me on. We're going to have you both come up at this time to go over the anti-racist curriculum project, and I'm very excited to see what you have. We know that we're about to, there's several slides that have been, if the public is looking, we'll work our way through these slides, and we're going to take about 20 minutes to present the information. Thank you.
I can just jump in. Can folks hear us if we're like this? Should I be a little closer?
Get a little closer.
I got to be to the mic. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Shane Wiegand. I'm a former fourth grade teacher from Rush Henrietta. I co-direct the Anti-Racist Curriculum Project with Keisha James. And I'm here today most of all because of my students' questions. They asked me about 10 years ago, did Martin Luther King ever come to Rochester? Or did we have a civil rights movement? And I realized despite living here my entire life, I had no good answer to those questions. But I had the honor of working with my students to answer them, the youth at Teen Empowerment, kids in RCSD, teachers like Keisha James, elders like Dr. Cooper and Dr. Young to help answer some of those questions. And I'm honored to be able to share with you tonight about our work, how we do it, and the ways we've been engaging with the RCSD. And I'm really excited to be here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keisha James. I co-direct the project with Shane, and I went to the very first training that he gave in 2019 to RCSD teachers, and I was blown away in the first 2 hours of all of the history that I learned around Rochester that I'd never knew. And I went back and I taught the curriculum to my students, and they just shared so much about their own lived experience. It was such a beautiful conversation, and just that time of us digging into the local history and them seeing themselves in the curriculum. So we're gonna go and jump through and share with you some of the curriculum, what it looks like, and again, what we've been doing with Rochester City School District teachers and students.
So just to give a really quick overview, we'll share who we are and, oh, let's pass this back.
Yeah.
Can we pass this? This feels awkward to dance. Okay, we'll share a little bit about who we are and what we do. We're gonna give you just a little, like a sample lesson from our fourth grade enslavement unit that a lot of teachers are using in the district, share a little bit of our engagement with the district and some of the next steps we're hoping to do.
So every time we start our PDs and our trainings, we always start with a check-in, SEL check-in, because it's important to start with students and checking in where they are before you jump into a lesson. And so each teacher would do this as well as students.
Oh, I'm a 3. I think the happy dog up there. That's
Yes.
where I'm at. All right. So we also have a website, resistancemapping.org, where all our curriculum is accessible, adaptable, and copyable in Google Documents for all of our units. And so you can explore there, and we'll leave those with you in the slides after to dig deeper.
We're going to show you a sample from our 4th grade and 7th grade unit around enslavement and resistance in New York State.
All of our work, though, is co-authored with our elders, with a number of different youth over the last 3 years who have reviewed and given feedback. So know that this is really student-centered work that we're going to share with you today.
We have an advisory board that really helps oversee from past to present New York State regions to the deans of all the local colleges as well. We're funded by almost every major foundation in Rochester, which provides an opportunity for us to offer currently our trainings and our professional development for free to folks and to schools in the 9-county region.
In our model, everything is rooted in restorative practice. Everything is an inquiry. Everything is focused on student action, on kids not being indoctrinated, but looking at documents, deciding what they mean for themselves and how they want to act. It's deeply rooted in the social studies and ELA standards for New York State, the culture responsive framework, and we have a real focus on building capacity, coaching, and supporting leaders and teachers in doing this work well. So we're going to give you a quick sample of our enslavement unit that Commissioner Simmons had the chance to experience at the Literacy Conference. Just run through a few slides to show you what a sample lesson might look like, show you how we kind of do PD with teachers, and dig into this kind of major topic that's rooted in these standards. To participate in an inquiry, analyze primary sources to learn how Black people and their allies have resisted the horrible conditions of enslavement in New York State. And I just want to say I was 25 years old as a teacher when I learned that slavery happened right here. I didn't know that my entire life, despite living here.
We always start with group norms because we think it's important to have a foundation of how we have safe conversations with students. A lot of stereotypes can come up in these conversations, and so we help teachers understand that they need to co-create group norms with their students, making sure that they agree with them. And here's a sample of what we do when we do trainings with teachers and how we want to have conversations that are safe yet empowering. So with our unit, we start day one with Africa, so I can analyze images and artifacts to identify the diversity, rich histories, and traditions that Africa has always had. We start with having folks jot down their first associations when they hear the word Africa, a word, thought, or phrase that pops into their heads. We have them notice and wonder about this beautiful map of the continent of Africa. We show some interesting facts that Africa is the second largest continent. And then we do this activity called a zoom in, zoom out, where we don't tell them the image that they're looking at. We just have them notice, wonder, and infer. We slowly go through each of these parts of this image. Folks are saying, oh, I see some lines. It looks like a kidney bean. I see it. It looks like a robe there. I'm wondering what that writing is. Oh, I'm seeing some feet here. And we're not saying whether they're right or wrong. This is inquiry. We're just restating what is being said. Noticing that they're seeing, is that a staff? It looks like part of a crown. Seeing, oh, is this a king? Is he holding a coin or an orb? And then we show the whole image together, and then we say, well, what story is this telling us about Africa? Digging a little bit deeper, then we show them the Catalan Atlas from 1375, pre-transatlantic slave trade, noticing that gold route above our mystery person. We then reveal who this mystery person is, the Emperor Mansa Musa, one of the richest men to ever live. Having the students realize that the Mali Empire was 9 times larger than what New York State is today, always pairing this with the geographic reasoning of where these places are located on the continent of Africa. Students will then watch a TEDx video to learn a little bit more about Mansa Musa and what happened during his reign. The next thing students do will work through this 3-2-1 partner activity where they look at these beautifully rich images all across the continent of Africa. They jot down 3 things they notice, 2 things they wonder, and then an inference that they can make about Africa. At the end, the teacher then shows all of these images with a little bit more information about each one of these, always pairing it with the geographic reasoning of where these places are located on the continent of Africa. And then we close this unit by asking students, well, when you hear the word Africa now, what's a word, thought, or phrase that pops in your head? Our hope is that students will come away with more richness, more beauty, more diversity than when they started the lesson.
So our goal is to really shift that asset-based approach. When I used to teach slavery, I started with the slave ships. I didn't start with kings and queens. I didn't start with power, with art, with images, with modern day. And making that shift and helping teachers, not just with this unit, but any unit, think, how am I starting this unit from a place of assets? And you'll see the way we do that as we dig deeper into how enslavement looked in New York State. The kids dig into this inquiry question and have a chance to walk around the room, engaging with different primary source documents that center the voices of people of color and their allies in New York State. And we offer some really important shifts for kids to consider. So instead of saying Austin Stewart was a slave, we invite students to think about him being an enslaved person or a person who was enslaved, because no one chooses to be enslaved. It's something done to you. He was forced to work for no pay right here in the Rochester area.
Or even thinking about Daniel Penfield, we use the word enslaver versus the word master. Master can have a positive connotation. Where enslaver was a choice that these individuals made. Daniel Penfield chose to enslave Africans right in the town of Penfield, and it's important for us to be able to name people that participated in this as well. You see the sculpture of Daniel Penfield in the town, yet there's no mention of the enslaved Africans that turned the mill to generate the wealth for this community.
And then instead of runaway, we use a term like freedom seeker. Again, positioning that agency and that strength. African Americans like Thomas James, who built the AME Zion Church on Favor Street, who escaped from slavery in Fort Plains, New York. Was he escaping or was he seeking his freedom? Was he running away or doing something that was actually good? So you can see some kids here in the district engaging with what we do next with this gallery walk. On sticky notes, jotting down what they notice, what they wonder, what they infer, from things about the Underground Railroad to first-person accounts from enslaved New Yorkers like Austin Stewart and Thomas James, or Sojourner Truth, getting some of the reality of what was happening. Of course, the classics like a Harriet Tubman, but things that we didn't realize, that someone like a Sojourner Truth or Austin Stewart could be enslaved because in New York State it was legal to enslave. Our lawmakers, half of our senators, half of our assembly members actually owned human beings in New York and passed laws to make that legal. So helping kids see both the system and the individual. It didn't change this law until 1827 on July 4th. That our city is named for an enslaver who enslaved right here, so is our county. You can see the numbers across the state, that people revolted, but they didn't always win. That people like Nathaniel Rochester even bought and sold and put ads out to catch freedom seekers, like a woman named Agnes. And then others like Asa Dunbar, a black man who helped settle the Rochester area after the Haudenosaunee removal. He was never enslaved. He was a free black man who helped build Rochester well before Nathaniel Rochester came to the area.
And then we always check in with students at the end of each of the days. How are you feeling? What zone or zones are you in right now? Because especially with topics like this, it's important to make sure we're checking in with students and seeing where they're at and how we can continue to support their social emotional development. The next thing we do is we do what's called a common reading, where students actually read excerpts from two people who were formerly enslaved from their actual autobiographies. They use our social studies superhero roles to ask the question, is this document credible or reliable? Can I trust it? Why or why not? They ask, whose voice or perspective is missing here? What else do I know about this place and time? And what's the main idea or the gist or the important details around these documents? When we think about the CRSE framework, we ask these questions of, how, when we do this training with teachers, how is this learning experience different from what or how you learned about enslavement growing up? How can these lessons support your classroom and social studies ELA, the CRSE framework, as well as our SCL goals?
And then we also have this same model of inquiry, of notice and wonder, of gallery walks, zoom in, zoom outs, the social studies superhero roles with our units on Latino civil rights in Rochester, especially featuring RCSD and the fight for bilingual education, the centering of Black joy and resistance on Clarissa Street, places like the Pithod Club, really trying to find this balance of helping students understand the injustice in our community, the resistance, and the community and joy and neighborhoods that survived and thrived despite some of this at each of these grade levels. You can see a bunch of the buildings across the area where Keisha and I have gone and run these professional learning experiences from 28 and 23 to our Latinx at School 8 or School Without Walls. You can see some of this going on in grade 8 and 12 at Northeast. So just some really great pieces. We had a chance to work with the majority of the social studies teachers as well as the principals last year to give them a deeper experience to actually do what the students do with part of our enslavement unit and part of our redlining unit. And this summer had the chance to work with all the SSOs to learn some of this history, not just from enslavement, but the local civil rights. We could go deeper, but we don't have time, into redlining and the civil rights movement in our community as well.
For the last 2 years, and this is going to be the third year, we've actually offered a free anti-racist virtual conference where we offer professional development for teachers that are coming. This year, our conference is on March 3rd. We have Dr. Bettina Love as one of our keynotes, Dr. Clint Smith, and then Dr. Sean Nelms, all sponsored by local colleges. This is a full day Saturday learning experience. We'll have over 18 different breakout sessions where teachers can come and they can get more resources around culturally responsive education. And our focus is really this year, joy, community, resistance, and sustainability.
So we hope you come.
And so Each month, we offer each of our units of study on True North Logic, so teachers can sign up on their own, and we have 4 hours of PD that's offered per unit. Twice a year we do this. We do a fall series and then a spring series. Again, in 2022, we did a PD for all of the principals and the social studies teachers, and then we've had individual schools that have reached out. And so the schools on the left-hand column, we've gone in one time and done some kind of training or professional learning around the curriculum or around social emotional learning, around interrupting racist or harmful comments. And then the schools on the right-hand side, we've gone in multiple times. Some of them we've gone in and worked with, like for example, School 19, we've gone in and worked with all of their 4th grade and 5th grade teachers to really help them unpack the curriculum so that they can teach it again in an empowering way for students.
And again, all our curriculum is a resource meant to be used, adapted, and adjusted for each classroom, and we're there to help teachers do that, thanks to the generosity of our community. Our goal, when we think about our next steps moving forward, is ensuring that every RCSD teacher and staff member understands our local history, from enslavement to redlining to civil rights, and that our teachers especially understand how to teach this in a way that's not lecture, that's not indoctrination, but that is really inquiry, that's in line with our New York State standards, and something that empowers them to take action in their communities and apply some of these culturally responsive shifts, not just to these 2 or 3 or 4 exemplar units, but to everything that they're doing, really supporting the priorities of the district here, as well as supporting students getting involved and engaged with their community and participating in civic action projects like these. So for example, at School 50, students did protest signs, they advocated about integration. The youth at Edison Tech, after engaging with this curriculum, made this incredible film about the story, about redlining, interviewing political leaders. You'll see stories like this in the district and all across the community where students are engaging and taking action.
And I will say, when teachers actually come to our professional development, it is experiential. They go through the curriculum as students, and then we have them put their teacher hats on to ask questions about what this would actually look like in their classroom. And so that is where we're at. If you are interested in learning a little bit more, we have our 3rd year annual review that is on here that was done by the University of Rochester. And so if you're interested in looking at some more of the numbers and the work that we've been doing across last year, and then we can share years 1 and 2 if you're interested as well, those will be the remaining slides. But we will open it up to questions.
Thank you, thank you. I have to give you kudos because I was like, how are they going to get through these slides? And not only did you do it, but you did it under the time, so.
I'm very proud of us.
Wonderful.
This is what we do.
Apparently, I said, I gotta pray that they are just that dope, and you really are. This was awesome information, very rich, and I feel like you captured it. I'm so glad that people can come back and look at it, and the slides are available to the public so they can take time and really consume some of the information. At this time, I do want to take a few minutes to open the floor for commissioners that may have questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. I'm going to start to my left with Commissioner Griffin if she has any thoughts or concerns, questions.
I do this all the time. I apologize. Again, to piggyback off of Commissioner Simmons, this was an excellent presentation. It really was. I have a couple of questions, and maybe probably some members of the board that have been here for a while can clear me up on some issues or some concerns I may have. Didn't we have a African American program or some curriculum that was implemented, and then it was in the system, in the school system for a minute, then it was shut down? Is that valid?
Yeah, I think there's always been a cry, and Superintendent Peluso was not able to be here right now. I think he'll be back in later on this evening, so we can certainly follow up. And administration is here as well, so I'll let Deputy Turner respond.
Yes, and some of the, well, one of the board members was here. We did have a Department of African American Studies, and that program was eliminated maybe, features what, 4 years ago? Was it 3 years ago?
The African American department that produced no curriculum, no actual, this is 180 degree from what the district had internally on record with no actual outcomes, including a curriculum. So I do want to put that on record, and it was phased out. We were essentially paying for a title, and people assumed that that individual was developing curriculum and that it was being implemented across the district. There was never any evidence presented to this board. And the public can go back to October 2018, where the conversation started, and February 2019, because it was the February 2019 budget where it was eliminated for the 2021 budget year.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. I would like to see that information. If we still have it, if it's still public knowledge, I would definitely like to see what that was in reference to this, because like I said, this is very good, and I'm all for it, and I think that we need to have this sort of curriculum in our school system. I was just curious of what happened to the other curriculum, or whatever proposal it was to be put into our district and then eliminated, because we don't want to waste money or waste anybody's time, right? So that's why I stated what I said, because I didn't know the situation, the circumstances surrounding it. Thank you again. And I see, my biggest concern is, are you just illustrating these on a screen, or is it a booklet that the kids are utilizing? Because we know that using the screens for our children, the younger children, it definitely affects their visual. The neck and the head, how they say that is really effective health-wise. So do we have a booklet that they can read, and they can, I'm big into reading and not using the screen. I'm really against the screen for our younger generation. So where are you at with that?
So on our website, all of our curriculum is free and open source, so you can take a look at that. We have all the teacher directions, all the slide decks, and the student handouts. And so teachers can actually print the student handouts and actually give them to students. And we're actually working with a local artist, Sean Dunwoody, who is actually creating a children's book for us right now. And so we have a second grade curriculum that we're ready to implement, but we are creating a children's book. So students actually will have a book that they can read about Constance Mitchell, our first Black female elected official in Rochester. And so they're learning about the work that she did in our community. And so that should be available later on this year. So we will have an actual children's book, a print and an ebook as well. But all of the work that students can do are their printable Google Docs. Teachers can adapt them in any way they need to. They can scaffold them for their students. They can put it on a Google Classroom if they want to. So they have options to use that in any way that they like.
Okay, and here again, I'm a stickler on the screen, because if you look at statistics and data, it will tell you that the younger generation, we need to get away from the Chromebooks, and we need to do with the reading, because that's how to remember and they take in, and the sensory nerves work better that way. So I would drive to get away from the Google Chrome and just go with the straight reading from a booklet, because I believe that kids intake the information more than when you do it and when you're on the screen. It definitely lowers their ability to relate. So if you read something and you're reading it on the paper, you get better results. That is just for myself. And I just want to say again, everything was great. Those are some of the things that I think that should be looked at as well. And I look forward to seeing a lot more from you too. That was great.
Thank
And if
you,
I could add
Commissioner
one
Griffin.
thought. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
The best trainings that we do are in person. We love doing them online through True North, but when we have the chance to be in a school with all the teachers that some of you have engaged, everything is printed. Everything is on the wall. It's
Thank
movement,
you.
it's interactive,
Thank
and that's
you.
how I learn best and kids learn best. So everything, both options are available.
I was going to say that I do appreciate that it is adaptable to the style and the situation, and so online is available, but you can print it out. And what I really find attractive about this presentation is the experience I had, which was the interactive presentation, where you're writing on sticky notes and inferring, and I think that is developing the critical thinking skills of children and capturing their own individual thoughts versus the draconian standing at the front of the classroom piece. So I love that piece. And I think those are very good points to make sure that we are pulling that out to recognize how adaptable this curriculum can be. Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. First of all, wonderful presentation. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Shane. I've had the pleasure as a social studies teacher in my own district of engaging in this professional development, and I'm still I just taught Mansa Musa last week, and we use that activity, so it really provides perspective. I love how available this is. I love the fact that it's adaptable, and I think it's teaching our real history, and this should be nationwide. So thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Commissioner LeBron, Vice President LeBron.
Hi, thank you. I too also want to commend you on a comprehensive overview. My questions, and this can certainly go on the board question log, I would be okay with that, but I do want to understand how it's being rolled out, right? So teachers go through the training, and then what's the follow-up on our end in the district in terms of actual implementation, day-to-day, what that looks like, and how teachers are using this training, incorporating it into other areas, right? Changing their lens as well, because now they were equipped with more knowledge around this topic. So I guess for me, that's where I would personally would like to see some of the early onset of outcomes and data in terms of what were internal, our staff feedback, did they find it helpful? Are they using it? How are they using it? How is it being rolled out and implemented? And then for the board question log as well, if there is a way to require this and make it mandatory through contract negotiations so that it's not just social study teachers and that it's all educators are required to as part of their PD. So I would be curious what the language currently states around what they can select and whether this could be one of the things that is selected in the TNL system as a requirement through the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron, and welcome, President Elliott. This evening, we just had the anti-racist curriculum project, so the slides are available. Very good. I think you will definitely enjoy it. I'm going to go on to Commissioner Santiago at this time.
Yeah, I would also like to give a big shout out. I've sat in I believe 3 presentations now, and I've been able to learn something new every time. So I appreciate the presentation, and I am looking forward, with updates, on the implementation of programs like this.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. And Commissioner Patterson.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, great, wonderful presentation. I think it's very important that our Black students, know their history. It's very difficult and we hear so many other, races or ethnicities teaching their kids, their histories. When we talk about, the Jewish community, how it's ingrained in them. And I truly believe that our students need to hear that we originate from kings and queens, and the stories behind this and all the success that we have as people of color. So very important that we implement that at the youngest ages so they know exactly where we come from, where we originate from, and all the great things that, people of color have done, over the decades. Even I didn't receive that throughout my education. I'm still trying to learn day by day exactly, the great contributions that we made as people of color, as Black people. So not to take anything from any other ethnicity, they're doing their job with their kids. But, I applaud you for now educating our youth and letting them know that, yes, we were great people too. You can be great, you can be whatever you want to be. And here are perfect examples of, people you can follow. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson, and recognizing that the history of a people is so relevant to all races, and it is the premise in which we prevent certain things from happening, and atrocities that happen in our world is the understanding of one another. And so, like I say, Black history is American history, but this history is certainly for Black and brown children, but it is also for every other group of individual to understand collectively who we are. The other piece that I really enjoy about this is the redlining project that resulted. I got to hang out in that project. I was so impressed by the students, but not only the students, but their thorough knowledge represented in that film. And if anyone has not seen the redlining project done by the students of Edison High School, please check that out. It is available on their website. Go there and check it out. And, it made me think of something that was a recent social media discussion where we look at Cornhill, for example, and that's the 3rd district here in Rochester. And so you're not only teaching children their history, but you're also applying it to Rochester, is my understanding, and how to become public servants and fight for justice throughout the community, how to make it applicable, the learning that they have. And so an example is the third ward district, which we know is known as Cornhill, was gentrified. My grandparents were there when it happened. I remember stories of my grandmother, what we call playing possum, right? When they let a woman enter her home and she overheard the woman talking about how she wanted to redo the windows, and she caught on and said, wow, okay, they're trying to do something with my home, which they did to the residents. And right now today we have the wonderful Cornhill Festival, but when you look at the Cornhill Committee, I just saw this on social media, someone brought that out, the committee is not reflective of, it's not diverse at all. And so someone put that into action, Tamara Lee, and she went and said, hey, anyone interested in joining this committee? And people are able to sign up and become included. And that's what you're looking to have the students do, just that right there. So I don't want to belabor this topic. State Monitor Elisea, did you have any thoughts on the topic that you saw this evening?
Again, I just want to commend you for doing a great presentation this evening. It is very important that our students learn to know where they're coming from, what are the assets that are here in their community, and how can they work together. So it was a great, great presentation.
Okay, great questions and comments and thoughts. Any parting things you'd like to share with us before we conclude?
I just feel honored that the last 3 years have had the chance to work with folks like Steve Lamort, Ryan Keating especially, have been really incredible in helping support the work and get it in front of students, and just incredible teachers. Hundreds of teachers have invited us into their classrooms. They've asked us for coaching. They've asked for help to teach these stories, to teach them better in a way that kids can hear it. And it's meant so much for me. And to Commissioner Patterson's comments, our Black students need this and our white students. I needed this growing up. And I didn't get it. And I was taught misconceptions and wrong things and racist ideas that, for me, learning this with my students has changed, and so having that space and for kids to be like, how do we make our world? And so your help and support and making sure that this isn't something that just some folks know in the district. We have funding for a couple more years. We want to make sure that it's everywhere. And your help in doing that and making sure that it's really being implemented well, like Commissioner Santiago was talking about, and Commissioner LeBron, like, how do we make sure it's being measured? How are we held accountable to do better? U of R is helping us with some of that, with our person that does that with us, but we want to be a useful tool for you. Our agenda is to support the RCSD and obviously the surrounding districts with this.
Evidence is certainly important, and also I'm very curious about even building the capacity of educators that may not have it. Like, some people have it, and then some people like yourself, you were very transparent. Hey, I had no clue, right? And how do you build the capacity of educators who have no clue? And have you run into some who are really not, could be rather disinterested in, or don't find this relevant? That's another concern.
I can count on one hand the amount of teachers that have found this, haven't had any issues. I think out of the 2-3 years that we've done trainings, there's one teacher we had to kick out of the training because of his racist comments. And we tried to do a restorative circle with him, and that didn't happen, but overwhelmingly positive responses. And I will tell you, as a former RCSD alum, I needed this as a student at 28. I needed this as a student at Franklin. And when I was teaching in the district at 34, as soon as I got my hands on this material, I implemented it. And my kids lit up because it was all about their local community. And I can tell you the conversations that I had were one of the best conversations I've ever had. And these are 6th graders. And so getting them talking and even getting them emotional about their lived experiences and the empathy that was built in my classroom and in my space because they were seeing themselves and they were sharing their stories. Like, this was incredible. And I'm saying this as a teacher teaching it, and then I just had to be a part of this work. So I missed the district, but this was a calling, because if I did this well, but like you said, we have teachers where we have done capacity building as well on True North Logic to help them grow these skills, to process as they're trying these things in their classroom, what's going well, what challenges are you finding, and how can we support you? Because we're not gonna throw the whole thing out. We really wanna make sure, what areas did you have challenges with, and how can we give you some strategies and some tools to start to implement?
Right, and we definitely don't want to have to dismiss anyone from the training, and we don't want it to stop there, especially if there's a concern, but I'm going to stop there. I'll talk to you offline. I'm going to actually turn the mic over to President Elliott, who wants to express a question or concern.
Thank you. I apologize for not being here. I actually was doing a tour at the Isaiah House, which is for those families who are, what's the term? Hospice. So I apologize for not being here for that. But I just wanted to add, I didn't see the presentation, so I don't have any questions specifically with regard to the presentation, but I would add that as we rolling this out, and I did hear that we have students who are really soaking the information up, and yet you'll have students who, because of the white supremacist mindset that Black folk have as well, because of what we have been, infused with, it may take some of our students some time in order to be able to process, to change the thinking from a white racist mindset to a mindset that embraces their own culture and identity, because that is there. And just to speak to the person who did not want to, who was resistant to this, part of that is he's scared, right? Part of it is he's scared because, who wants to give up power, right? So, so they're trying to hold on to it, but 2040 tells a different story. So I just wanted to share that if we have some students or even some adults who are resistant to it, look at what they've been taught and look at what we see, the subtle messages that we see in the media about us. And so I just want to make sure that, we are, everybody is given grace around this, because there is an agenda to try to retain a white supremacist modality. And that's what we've got to, it can't be that anymore. We all have to work with this together.
Yes, that's why we also offer half-day social-emotional learning PD, as well as interrupting racist and harmful comments. How do we call people in versus calling them out? Again, and then with that coaching and capacity, because we noticed that, we saw that. And so we said we can't just give curriculum because it can harm them. We can harm students unintentionally if we put it in the wrong hands. So we want to give that wraparound support and services of, this is not just units of study. This is, we're going to hold your hand and help you walk through this process and this journey.
And they might not hear it in second grade or fourth, but they might hear it in fifth,
Right.
They might hear it in seventh, they might hear it in eighth. That's why each year having the local examples, even for a week, where kids get to engage with meaningful instruction is key. But the reason why it's only one person we've ever kicked out of a training is because the way we do this is not in a white supremacist way. We take a culturally responsive, inquiry-based, asset-focused approach, and even the folks who come in angry when they see the title, they leave with, oh, I had no idea that happened. Or, oh, I remember that, but I had no idea the other side of that story at Charlotte in 1971, or whatever the story is powerful.
Yes, thank you. So I know we keep saying thank you, and then we're going
Yeah, we gotta go.
But I do literally have one more. Someone else has alerted me. Commissioner Griffin has one last question or comment, and we're done.
Actually, it's probably not even a question. It's just, I just wanted to, well, yeah, it's kind of a question. I apologize. I appreciate you guys' passion in teaching this to the children. On the flip side, has any of the children been interested in maybe teaching now? Because we want to drive that home too. A lot of kids start young, they know what they want to do when they grow up. Are they having a better interest and a more interest in teaching now since you started this program? Because we do need them to come back and teach what you're teaching them, and that's what we're looking for.
Well, one, I'd say the folks at the TLI program have had the chance to engage with a lot of this work. The other thing I would say that's really important is part of why this work happened and left my classroom is I had a black student in my class named Kaliat who was really upset when she realized Dr. Young was the first black principal in all of Monroe County in 1962. But here she thought she was so old in 4th grade and she'd never had a black principal or a black teacher. And she counted all 40-something teachers in the building and said, they look like you, Mr. Wiegand, and I like you, but it's not fair. I should have a teacher who looks like me. And I said, well, what did Dr. Young do? What did her friend Dr. Cooper do? And we talked to them. And they told us how they had friends help them. So she got 2 of her friends. They met with the principal. They talked to the superintendent. They talked to board members. And it led to some changes. Not enough, but they saw themselves and realized they could do something informed by that history. And the hope is that she will become a teacher. There's a few years left, but that is the hope, and it's a feature. Their story is in our 4th grade curriculum so that every kid actually hears from those little girls' voices about what they wanted to see in their school, and the hope is we need more teachers. So.
That's what we need. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for this presentation this evening. I'm sure we're going to be following up, and we appreciate you taking the time to come on out. So I'm going to move forward in the agenda at this time, and we're going to have Demario Strickland, Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. He's going to give us some updates in the Teaching and Learning Department here.
Good evening, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Chairwoman Simmons, Board Commissioners, staff, my colleagues, and most importantly, the students and families of the Rochester City community. Tonight, I bring to you a presentation around our Brigance testing, which is administered by our teachers for our pre-kindergartners in both Rochester City Schools and also some of our CBOs, which is our community-based organizations. And here we go. Anytime we start a presentation, it's very important to bring us to goals. Now, I know that we have not formally adopted any goals, but I've sort of gotten a pulse of where our Board of Education would likely to be going, and I am trying to start to internalize this within the work that we are currently doing. But it is very important that we begin to socialize these goals. And of course, there's impact around grades 3 through 8, ELA, as well as mathematics. And, again, this definitely needs to guide our work. We are grounded in a vision for excellent instruction. We want our students to feel seen, affirmed, and valued. We want to ensure that our students have always have the opportunity to engage in grade level content. We want them to own the thinking. And finally, demonstrate progress towards learning goals. And just wanted to shout out our Chief Academic Officer, who's been doing a wonderful job socializing this with our stakeholders, including our parent organizations, gathering our feedback so that we can ensure that we take that big DRAFT off of the corner of this document and it becomes something that we live and breathe by and it's accepted by all. So the Brigance, it's a developmental screener that measures the mastery of early development and academic skills. It's administered to all of our pre-kindergarten students, and kindergartners are also provided the Brigance if they actually score a level 1 or 2 on the Brigance when they are in pre-K. This is a normed reference test, meaning it's measured across multiple students. Just an FYI, this exam is actually recognized by other districts and can be administered up to grade 1. However, we just choose to use this as a screener for our pre-kindergarten 3, pre-kindergarten 4s, and then, like I said before, our kindergartners who may have scored a level 1 or 2 on the indicators that are provided. There are four sections or 4 items that are being tested for our students. That is in language development, academic and cognitive skills, physical development and health, and no, those are the 3, excuse me. And we are testing our students that are 3-year-old and 4-year-olds to do specific things. So I have provided bullet points in front of you, identifies pictures by naming, a boat, scissors, kite, or wagon. So students are shown items, shown photos, and students must be able to identify what those items are looking like. They know the uses of the specific objects, so we have books, scissors, stove, pencil. So I say, hey, what does a stove do? You would tell me a stove is used to cook, and that is helping you understand if students are gaining access to language, which is going to help show their level of success as they approach kindergarten. There are some other testing items where you're repeating sentences with 4 syllables, 6 syllables, 8 syllables. So a bird can fly. Students are then able to repeat that back. A bird can fly. And they're not slurring it or they're breaking it up. They're chopping it up nicely so that it can be understood by the person that's administering the test. As for our 4-year-olds, very similar items that are being asked of them, but then it also takes things to the next level. So you see a few different words here, snake and ladder and leaf and nail. Those are like more tier 2 type words. As we move up, we talk about words that you're not normally exposed to. That students are starting to being able to identify. They also can name portions of their body, their stomach, neck, back, knees, fingernails, thumbs. They can follow directions, 2 and 3 steps, very important. And use sentences of at least 3 words, and also ensure that their speech is intelligible, meaning it is very much understood what is being said when they are asked to repeat something or when they are asked to carry out a task. The test also, or the progress monitoring, the diagnostic also addresses the academic and cognitive skills of the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. They can repeat their first and last name and age. They understand number concepts. When presented a specific number, they can identify 2, 3, and 5 items. If I have 5 Skittles, they can say that is five different objects that are in front of them, or it could be a mixture of objects. They can repeat sentence of 4 syllables, 6 syllables, and 8 syllables. And then we have here our 4-year-olds. You see, even the amount of text that is on the slide is much more, so we're asking, can they do things like taking it to the next step, knowing their street address? Can they, the student is presented with a row of 4 shapes that are alike and one is different. Which one is different? And they would point to it. The teachers can ask if they can count as far as they can. The teacher shows objects and asks students to tell them how many objects are there. This is repeated for objects, 5 objects and 8 objects. Just an FYI, 3 Skittles, and I don't know, I guess I really want some Skittles tonight, but 3 Skittles may look different than 3 different squares. And then students could actually get those concepts confused, and it could actually change the outcome of their answer. And that's why it's different, to show different variations of counting up. And then finally, we have physical development and health of 3 and 4-year-olds. They are given a model. The student is asked to draw a vertical line, a horizontal line, and a plus sign. They're asked to build things such as a tower. The student is credited with the number of blocks on how high the tower is built. And finally, gross motor skills, which is extremely important. They standing on 1 foot for 5 seconds. Can they balance? Can they walk forward, toe to heel, so on and so forth. And this is the same, but now adding a few different elements. So drawing a circle, plus a plus sign, and an X, and a square, and a rectangle. So it's getting, it's increasing in complexity. And then we have gross motor skills, which now they're doing 5 hops on their preferred foot. They hop 5s on 1 foot and then the other. They stand on 1 foot for 10 seconds, stand on the other one for 10 seconds. And again, it is testing their gross motor abilities, which plays a lot in human development. There are 4 rating levels, which are in front of you. If a teacher or staff member rates them as level 1, they're determining a need for a formal evaluation. Okay? If they're rated a level 2, that's something, that skill that we have to definitely monitor closely. Level 3, they're functioning in normal range. And finally, level 4, they're possibly talented and may need enhanced work. And as you will see in 3 slides from now, that is something that I actually wanted to attack on because we don't often think about our students as being able to be advanced, and we definitely need to start putting that in front of our teachers, our families, so that we are just pushing them so that they are beyond ready for kindergarten and or first grade. So in 2022-23, you can see where our students landed in terms of the Brigance. And it's nice to see that the majority of our students did land at the functioning in normal range, with the highest percentage. However, we still have a significant population that is needing formal evaluations. And at times, this is one of the factors that are causing us to begin to go to pre-CSE, and then our students all of a sudden are classified at a very early age into special education. And that's something that we want to obviously have it go in the opposite direction and not increase. And then you see, so it's like a roller coaster almost in terms of the percentages. And what was done was, this is so far our outcomes for this following school year. So there, unfortunately, and what was done, and I apologize that it's not a true side-by-side, looking at the level 3s, the pre-K 3s, which are now our pre-K 4s, that's some data that I was actually pulling out to see where we're having increases or decreases. So we did have an increase in level 1s. 7% to be exact. If you look at the previous slide, they were pre-K 3 possibly, and they were 26.3. And now this year, we're looking at measurements and there's 33.2. Now, you can't necessarily do the apples to apples because of the fact that some of our pre-K 3s, some of our pre-K 4s that come in do not start with us as pre-K 3s. However, it's still good to look at the trends and possibilities of of some additional gaps that are out there. We have a slight decrease in some level twos, so monitoring closely at about 1.2%, again, from pre-K threes to pre-K fours this year. We had a decrease in about 8%, minus 8% for level threes from 2022-23 to 23-24. And then finally, we did have a slight increase of about 1.2% for students that are scoring at a level 4. And then finally, our next steps as I continue to lead the pre-kindergarten department and to sort of re-envisioning how we support our students in the Rochester City School District and in our community, because we do service 40% of our students in our community-based organizations, which are fantastic partners that we do have to lean on to get this important work done. We now need to support families from the cradle to grade 5. So what resources are we doing to get our families that are pregnant and need resources and different guidance on what they can do even when our children are within the womb? That definitely is extremely important. Developing programming for students that are gifted and talented. Too often, again, we think about the deficits and we don't think about that little Johnny over there that really can just do one-handed cartwheels and things of that nature, break dance, so on and so forth. He's talented physically, or he can count from 0 to 100. We don't have programming for students of that caliber that's concise and something that can be replicated across the district. Bringing multi-tiered systems of support to pre-K. There are students that I told you that are at level 2 and 3. We want to bolster, 3s and 4s. And the way you do that is by providing intervention, which are given tools to teachers so that they can actually have impact in their classroom. If a student is scoring at a level 1 on that Brigance, there's tools that they can use to actually help them push that student back towards tier 1, which is going to give them the best chance and opportunity. Really digging down and finding the additional root causes for the determining need of formal evaluation. So we can't just, you scored level 1. We have to find out as a community, why are our students scoring number 1? Of course, we know the pandemic had a huge impact on where our students now are scoring, in particular 2024, 4 years ago, 2020. That is when we went into the COVID-19 pandemic. But what are the things that are actually going on that are causing them to get 1s? And then also looking at the students that are scoring 4 and starting to diagnose what happened that was different that got some of our students scoring level 4s versus the students that are scoring level 1. And then following up with our kindergarten students that scored level 1 or 2. So looking at that data, analyzing, what progress has been made, really following through. I'm not sure, as it's still been less than a year, what those mechanisms are as I learn about some of the testing that's in the pre-kindergarten department on how we're following up when they get to K so that we don't keep creating an opportunity gap, as they go through our current system. And finally, special thank you as always to Dr. Hooper and the strong work that she does in the early childhood department, along with Rebecca Boyle, and the work that they do with organizations such as the Children's Institute. So with that being said, I welcome your questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Deputy Strickland. Yeah, I think when I'm looking at this presentation, well, the whole presentation is helpful, and I just lost it. But slide 12 really, stood out to me, because when I think about literacy, which is one of our one of the core issues.
This one?
Yeah, that's,
said
yeah,
so.
I
Got
brought
it.
it back up. Understanding that literacy starts in the womb. It starts before the child even comes out. And just
Yes.
reading to your child, or
Yes.
reading, while that baby is in vitro or what have you, is so imperative to the learning. And so showing the different pieces, it was like, okay, and they're reading the word hop. But for me, that's valuable, because now it leads me to, what are we doing to ensure our parents, how are we partnering with our Office of Parent Engagement? Like, we keep talking, right? And I have to say, because I agree with you, we have children that are so talented, and gleaning and making sure those babies get lifted the way they need to is so important. But we keep looking at the deficit, because the deficit is just so big.
Correct.
And it's been monumental for such a long time that you can't help, it's glaring in our face, and it ain't right, right? And so I want to see all children, if a child is gifted, definitely make sure that child gets that access. But we've seen percentages here.
True.
Where children are not getting that. How are we making sure that this information is in the homes of parents? Because just the way you broke down some of these bullets and activities, as far as how the grants assesses the child, these are things that could be shared with parents. Like,
Correct.
do this, do these activities.
Correct.
How are we doing that?
So that's a great question. So as I begin to develop this presentation or enhance it from what was already provided before me, I wanted to add the actual intricate details about what that test looks like. And now that is in part one of my next steps. And like, actually, how do we get that information into the hands of our families so that they have practical, easy tools anyone can do with their children, that just few minutes a day that is going to enhance the outcomes, the learning outcomes of our students. So I would say details to come. I've taken down your suggestions. As always, parent engagement, yes, needs to be very involved in this. There is also a director of early literacy and numeracy that I'm going to be having, looking at curriculum and doing backwards map to find out, first of all, what do our pre-K 3s and 4s need to be ready to do for third grade,
Right.
okay, for third grade. But then that backwards mapping also goes from 3, okay, what about 2? And what are the milestones at 1? And when they're in the belly?
Yeah. And
Can I just add to that?
and partnering with our pediatric community as well for those screening pieces.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add right along to that, we are working with our parent engagement staff also, and along with TNL, to develop those visuals and guides for parents at those, whether it's a pre-K, K2, and so forth, so that they have some tools and resources as to what they can do to promote learning at home with their scholars. And in terms of working, we do work with University of Rochester Pediatrics Department, and we're doing screening for all our preschool third and fourth to screen for hearing, speech, language, because a lot of our students oftentimes get diagnosed with speech and language concerns later on. And as you know, if you can't hear and understand, you also have a hard time learning to read and comprehend. So they're doing fine motor skills assessment, speech and language, hearing, vision, and all that stuff, and working along to pass that information to the caregivers, and also to work with the schools to make sure that we provide the supports that are needed if concerns are identified at that early age.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Because I'm also listening to you talk about the special education piece, and sometimes not sometimes, I wonder about that, That's a lot of children. And is it a matter of, in some cases, it is very necessary, like a child has special needs and needs, so either way, they need resources. Our children need resources, and so I just think this early piece is imperative to responding to that. I'm going to start at the other end of the dais at this point. And Commissioner Patterson, did you have a question, thought, or concern you'd like to address?
Yes, thank you. So you've already asked one question, Commissioner, about the parents receiving, this information so they can work with their students at home, so I won't go over that. We talked about or what I see here on screen 14 is multi-systems of support. From looking at all the data for the last 2 years, I think a lot of support, that's why I was hoping it'd be a goal set alone for the 3rd grade, where it starts to drop off as far as reading levels,
Yes.
and math levels and things like that we see. So I'd like you to talk a little bit more for me, hopefully for my other board colleagues, relative to these systems of support. For the 2 years I've been on the board, we say we're going to do this, or we're going to do this, we're going to do this, but it never gets done. And, for me, I'm going to ask more direct questions in the future. Like, for example, we talk about these multi-tiered systems of support. Could you explain those, respectfully, could you explain those to, us, what they are?
So I would like to honestly say, from what I've seen since being at the home of the early childhood department, those are the things that can't necessarily be articulated as well right now, which is why I placed it as a next step. What are those academic or behavioral supports that are needed for tiers 2 and 3 for our 3s and 4-year-olds? And that's why it is placed on there. As we continue to define what things we can do, or what systems we can use to help move students to level 4 and 3, that information will be presented to you as we continue to move forward. But I've been putting these next steps up there, and I definitely make sure that I'm looking at this as we are following through with the work that we need to do to support our families.
Okay, the next time you give this report, could you make sure you have those for us, just so we know?
Sure.
Thank you.
Or that'd be really perfect. Or a timeline, if it's something that's
Yeah.
not, that you can't have by the next time. To Commissioner Patterson's point, just a timeline since this is in development.
Yes.
What that would look like and what we can expect as far as seeing this. Good question, thank you.
I appreciate that. And a timeline would be more appropriate for this one, as some of those supports have not yet been truly identified.
So then let's meet in the middle here. By the next presentation, we'll be getting a timeline of when we're gonna have those supports, because I know that takes time to develop it, and I don't want to set you up. But I would love a comprehensive report per Commissioner Patterson's request. Commissioner Santiago.
I just wanted to offer a suggestion or possibly even an idea, and if there is something currently going on that's of the sort, please let me know. But I see that in the first steps it says support families from the cradle, 0 to 5. Even possibly thinking about partnering with hospitals that children are birthed at. And providing maybe learning packages that may have cards that may be helpful, that may have a booklet to like something like that. Seeing how we can connect with our partners when it comes to supporting families with babies 0 to 5. Having a learning package that might be helpful. I don't know if there's something that may already be out there like that, but it's just an idea or a suggestion.
There are some things that are already going on with the Department of Pediatrics, with the GROW initiatives and whatnot within the city of Rochester. Actually, that was one of my first meetings as deputy, sitting down with LJ and, what's the other gentleman's name?
Jeff Kazarowski.
Yes, just really thinking about how we are going to truly impact our students right from the get-go, so that they are not coming to us with any deficits. They are at the same levels as any other student, and we are setting them up for success, setting our families up for success.
Yeah, and I'll say before, and then I'm done. But I like to see work like this. Definitely as we speak about literacy, because this is prevention. And it's important to get to work early on some of these issues.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. President Elliott?
Yeah, you all mentioned about a comprehensive study, And I'd like to know how many hours is that going to take? I don't want it to get out of line with what the strategic plan or the goals are going to be. So how long do you think a report like that? I think that I prefer that we conferred with the superintendent on that before you give us a yes on that. That may be kind of time consuming, or you tell me if it does. I heard you all talk about a comprehensive
We
report.
were talking about a timeline on just the, helping us understand more in depth what the tier 1, 2, and 3 interventions look like. So nothing that's like an encyclopedia,
Okay.
but just something that's going to be more comprehensive than we're going to do
Okay.
the 3-tiered
You
interventions.
okay with that, Deputy
Oh,
Superintendent?
absolutely.
Okay.
So, no, just to provide for further
Okay.
clarification, I never jumped the bounds, definitely don't. But the thing is, so like if a student scores in a level 1 or 2 range, then what are the resources that I can provide an educator to help that student progress to a 3 or 4? Those are the things that we as a cabinet, as a teaching and learning department do so that we're supporting our superintendent and making sure that we are providing the resources to the actual CBOs, the actual classroom teachers to make an impact with our students.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Yes?
Thank you.
Vice President?
Yeah, I actually have a lot to say, primarily because I'm living this now, and I just have to put out there, from pre-K, let me just put out there, yes, hospitals already do the brigade and already pre-screening early on for children. That already exists. There's nothing that the district actually needs to do to get that implemented. All pediatricians are now screening. It's in fact why Dr. Matt from the U of R, he's a pediatrician, decided to bring Imagination Library through Dolly Parton's group, and we got it into the district. So, and in part targeting pre-K, there's also Read, Sing, Grow. There's also Read Out Loud. These are initiatives both through the city and Children's Institute and that are being implemented, focused on early childhood literacy and math and just skills and just reading, singing, talking to your child. As Commissioner Simmons mentioned, from literally finding out you're pregnant, start reading to your belly. So my concern around some of these things, Mario, is like it sounds good in theory. I want to say like multi-tiered system essentially is something that exists in the K-12 universe, right? Has not fully rolled out and been implemented in the pre-K. Pre-K is sort of in their own league. They're under different regulations. I've said this many times. And I think pre-K is one area in this district that does phenomenal in terms of the staff, the training, and the detail. And in the past, we wouldn't utilize the Office of Parent Engagement for pre-K because they have their own family coordinators who do all the parent engagement, and they kick rocks. And I just want to put out there are a number of organizations that do already give out kits for learning, for breaks, for summer, and other breaks that we have, including pre-K department. So I just want to put that out there. Even when you register before your child comes, you get a phenomenal welcome kit, if you will, from the pre-K department in this district, including a tablet. And I know that people are advocating against tablets, but the reality is we live in a society right now with AI and robots, and it's just, we're going to have to keep up. I don't even know if teaching in a decade would even be a thing the way it traditionally looks because of technology. That's just where we're at. What I'm curious about seeing is what MTSS looks like at the pre-K level. Because I can tell you my experience right now is that my grandson, I'm literally back to square one. I got 4 grandbabies. We're getting screens, we're getting testing. One has already been identified. It took us almost 2 years from that initial assessment that said, hey, he's definitely going to need speech because he was a COVID baby and isolated from everybody except 4 people, me, his mom, his dad, and my partner. That's it. Like, he barely even saw Sophia. That's how protective we were. But there was a gap of 2 years before we even got an IEP in place. And I know, and this is me as a current board member, right, who knows these systems, who's advocating and assisting my daughter hand in hand in this advocacy. And I know that internally, the school has done all that they can. They submitted the paperwork. The teachers submitted the paperwork. That gap exists here, that central office piece, that has to be really fixed and addressed. And y'all know, for the folks who know or may not know, when I had a kindergarten class, I did kindergarten 1 year, never again. I was like, this is kindergarten, it's not for me. However, I did have a number of students that needed a lot of services, and I went 8 months 8 months on a kid that was nonverbal, ran around. Mom didn't know what to do, didn't have a diagnosis. 8 months before somebody in the district came in to assist with that situation. And this was in 2017, so I want to put that out there. This was not under this administration. But those gaps still exist because I'm living them today, to this very day. Now, we have another one coming behind. She, too, is also another COVID baby, because all these babies came COVID right after, and is also, right, her influence is her big brother who needs speech, and it took 2 years to get speech and an IEP. So it sounds great. I'm curious about what MTSS looks like from the district going, now folding into pre-K, understanding that pre-K, the staff and the team, they're gonna get their stuff done, and they're gonna get it done well to a level of excellence that we just don't have. And then lastly, it would behoove me if I did not rise this up, that the issue still remains when we transition from pre-K to K. And that gap, that's where I want to see what you're going to do to fix that, because that's where they
That's
fall.
the premise for this presentation and my request for it. We've had a great conversation, so I thank you for that, your comments, Vice President LeBron. And so that reiterates what we've been requesting, which is for you to give a comprehensive understanding, I'll repeat that again, a comprehensive understanding of the three interventions, the tiered interventions, what that looks like for us. And it is wonderful. We know that we have the universal pre-K that is world-renowned and a national model, all of those great things, yet our children are still not reading here. And I know it's a national crisis and all. I don't want to get into the nuances of it. All I want to know is what we're going to do to get these kids reading. And we want to start here with this 0 to 5, and then that 3-tiered, like I said, slide 12, and the children that are not reading was a key piece for me, the diagnosis of special education as a result. And is it special education, or is it, what's happening there? Are we, is it resources for some children?
For some children, it's a matter of resources
Right.
that if caught early enough, you could prevent that going through that whole process.
But to Vice President LeBron's point, just that long, drawn-out process and how far that goes down the rabbit hole before a child gets the intervention and how far behind that ends up putting them as a result. So I think these are like really strong presentations. I'll come back to you in just a moment. I'm going to circle back, and I'm going to move over to Commissioner Malloy at this point.
Thank you. All I can say is ditto to what other commissioners have said. So I won't ask those questions again. But this has been a really informative presentation for me. Really hits home for my own family. 2 of my 4 children had extensive early intervention beginning in pre-K. And just as Vice President LeBron was talking about her own experiences with her family, I wonder, because it was not the same experience for my family, do we have equitable access from start to finish for our families? I know that my pre-K students, or when my children were pre-K and then were classified, it was within a matter of months that they then had. And this is a different time too, because this would have been, 10 years ago or so? But they ended up with services almost immediately. And so are all of our families getting that equitable access? That's just the concern I wanted to bring up. But bravo on this presentation. It really puts things in perspective. I love how you broke everything down with the percentages. And that is the reality. And I would like to see the next steps. Thank you.
Can I just add to what Commissioner Malloy said? So we have a huge need for early intervention providers. So for example, we have when we look at our current preschool, about half, and I want to say how unimaginable it is, are labeled on the autism spectrum. coming in. That's a lot. So we don't have enough providers, we don't have enough speech pathologists, we don't have enough evaluators. So when students are not, when scholars are not getting that early intervention, which we know then sets them up to succeed in kindergarten and so forth, we're then getting them after preschool CSC and trying to play catch up. So I just wanted to your point, not like it was, I was an early intervention provider years ago for Catholic it is literally a waiting list that is unimaginable, and parents, as you could imagine, right, who know that their students need these services are having a hard time accessing them because there's such limited providers. And we have been advocating, so has a lot of people in this area, around the need for that, but people are not getting in that field. There's not enough of them to get into that field. A lot of people are choosing private practice where you pay a private pay, which is a higher reimbursement rate. So there's a lot of advocacy that needs to be done so that when students enter, those who go to preschool, as we know some of our students don't, that they're getting a lot of that advantage early on so that when kindergarten and first grade, so forth, come on, they're able to really take advantage of those learning opportunities.
No, thank you for that additional insight, because that actually clarifies the concern around the pediatric community. So it's not so much the holdup in the pediatric community as much, because I'm aware of the screenings. Of course, I've worked with Rock the Future, and that's why I'm aware of LJ and all those folks. But it is the holdup in the getting the children over to the additional assessments or specialists that they need. Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner Griffin?
Thank you, and I'm myself, I'm not gonna repeat everything everybody said. Everybody said a lot. Presentation was good, but I do have some questions. Since I've been on the board and before, I've heard a lot of different assessments, and I just wanna know what's working and what's not. Because whatever is working, why is it not being taught all the way through, so that we may not have that gap between the levels of education? So I just wanna know what high scope is, iReady, and you have Brigance. So how are they correlating? And because I'm saying that these are a lot of program or assessments that we're using, and there's dollars attached to these. So why do we have so many different assessments for our curriculum? And why can't we be consistent across the board so we may not have the gaps in educational growth?
Great question, Commissioner Griffin, and once again, congratulations on your appointment. So just to give some clarity, high scope is the actual curriculum that's used. It's what is being used by our educators to actually help students get to the next level. iReady and Brigance are, in a sense, similar in features, in that it gives you a baseline of where students are after you test them, and then you sort of have the information that you need in order for students to continue. iReady is not for pre-kindergarten. It's not a item that can be used in pre-K, whereas Brigance is something that is used at the pre-K level. There are some, we just had a meeting with New York State Early Learning Department, and myself and Dr. Hooper and the team will be possibly looking at what are some of those items that can be used that provides a more seamless transition from pre-kindergarten to grade K without messing up the fidelity of the program. So I think it's very important that there are many elements of our pre-K program that have been in place before me and will be in place after all of us, in a sense, that are working. And we want to make sure that we have programs, curricula that are not going to interrupt what we have in place that's working. So.
Thank you for that, because I do, with everything that I've read with the different curriculums and the things that we do use in the district, some things are working, like the pre-K, that is working. So why don't we look at that and what is working and try to and use that to go forward and move forward with the grades that like the third grade level that is not working. We're breaking the educational path for our kids by using something different. So we're bringing them up on a high, And then we're bringing them down on the low on the third grade because they're not given the same tools that they had in the second grade in the third grade. So that's where we're losing our kids at. So I think it'd be lucrative to us really hone in on that, and to everyone else's comments about just making sure that we have what we need as far as our special education. I think that's very important. But I also would like to know on the IEP and 504 levels, have we been able to see what key factors, key points there that that why we have an influx of those? I know COVID is an issue, but also I think there might be other concerns as well. And do we have something that's saying, okay, this is why this child is having issues here versus another child that is excelling? Because we have kids that are excelling that went through COVID, and we have other kids that are not. So what are the reasons why we are seeing this? That some kids did well during COVID and others just failed to meet the mark.
Well, I do know that the IEP, Individualized Education Plan, does measure students' current levels of performance. And that would be, those are items, or excuse me, those are things that they're able to do currently, and that's measured against what they should be able to do at that level, or where we would say they would normally need to be at to be as successful. But I will definitely have to get more information from our Chief of Special Education to just give justice to your question, to be sure that I don't mess it up. But I do know that the present level of education is something that actually goes on to the IEP, so that it tells you exactly what it is that you need to do to support that child right away.
Thanks again. I'm done.
Welcome.
Thank you. And Commissioner Patterson, you had one, and then I'll finish up.
Yes, thank you. So when we talk about often, poverty and violence, and how it's affecting our kids. What we don't often discuss, and this is more for you than us, maybe to help you. We don't often discuss prenatal dependency, treatment, and development. And the reason I say that is because there's a study, and again, I was going through my notes while I was sitting here, and I just couldn't find it. And at some point in time, I'm going to look back into my notes and try to find exactly what the study that was done by one of our area hospitals not even a decade ago. So you might want to look into that also. I think that information is very important, those statistics, for parents, that they know why their kids might not be learning at these levels that we're talking about. And the study directly has a correlation between drugs and alcohol and how our kids aren't performing at the levels they should. So just for you, you might want to look into that. I think it will be very important for parents to understand the importance of really staying away from drugs and alcohol and how it could affect their child while in the womb. Thank you.
President Elliott?
Let me get my thoughts together. One of the things that I have been advocating for is that we've got to ensure that our families have the kind of information that we have as professionals. And I don't think we do a good job of that. I think we tend to, which means that we're not, our parents are not as empowered as we would like for them to be in order to do this, help us to do this work. I don't know if we really are telling, and this is the take back to those who are working with our children between the ages of 0 and 5. I don't know if they're really telling them that, when you are pregnant, to the vice president's point, read while the baby is in the stomach. Now, they may, try to say, well, why, but that's where we give them the data to show them that it is it is successful. And then also, we've got to let them know that if our kids are not reading, particularly Black men are not reading on grade level at the third or fourth grade, they're going to prison. And so there are ways in which, in the household, that if we provided that information, that they'll make different decisions within the household. We tend to be on the end where we are being helping as opposed to being empowering. And so I think that we have to have our minds our thought process has to be different in that we're empowering them, we're providing those services and information where they're being empowered as opposed to only being helped. I think it makes a huge difference because we don't always know what can happen right there in the household that we're not privy to. But if we provide them with the information, not only our school district, but the other ancillary services that they're provided, if we started to do that, where we're empowering them, that I think we're going to see significant improvement in whatever educational outcomes that we have. So I used to say that, and I'm going to continue to say that we've got to get the information. We as professionals know it, but many times our parents are not as aware of the information as we are. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I think that was robust dialogue, and as always, we appreciate you, Deputy Strickland. Thank you for your presentation this evening and the follow-up that will come to ensure that our children are reading and learning all of the things. Did you have any final comments at this time? Okay, you ready to go, huh?
How's your family in
Somebody bring
Buffalo?
that man some
How's
water.
Buffalo? Buffalo.
Well, the Buffalo Bills won yesterday, so we're
No, I'm
very
talking about the
excited.
weather. I'm not talking about
Well, once the Bills won, nobody cared about the weather.
Oh.
But I do know that the educators in Buffalo, I don't live there no more. I live down the street. But the weather has the teachers and students at home, so people are happy.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Before I conclude for this particular meeting, I want to commit a question to the board question log for follow-up. And in all fairness, I know that the public is aware of the closing of Lynx and North Star. I've gotten quite a few questions, and I know that Superintendent Peluso has also extended himself to the board that we'll be going into conversations with him at some point as well. But if there can be a presentation for those folks that have questions around it, I don't know if that is something, but just put that in the board question log if you don't mind. Someone actually sent me something because they were confused with the reconfiguration, and it was listed on there, and then they said, are we doing it or not? And so I just want to acknowledge that I am in receipt of all of these different communications that have come in, and I'm requesting through the board question log if we can get a presentation for the public, and maybe that was already the plan, but that that's where I am with that. And so at this particular time, I think that concludes this meeting. So I'd like to make a motion or entertain a motion. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, don't forget the survey, guys. Thank you.
So we will just take a break for about 5 minutes max, and we'll reconvene the special meeting. For consideration of resolutions, and then we also have on our agenda the board goals. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. There are no speakers for this special meeting, and so if everybody's okay with it, I want to bundle the resolutions. So is there a motion for resolutions 574 through 584?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any questions or comments related to resolutions 574 through 584? Commissioner Patterson?
Yes, I was just speaking with the superintendent relative to 578. And it talks about an academy director, the salary of $110,281 a year. So we're going to talk about that, discuss that offline, because I'm really not familiar with that. Principal and vice principal, or assistant principal, yes, but not academy director. So we'll talk about that offline, discuss it offline, he and I.
I will just pose a little, so the positions that are there, the principal that is being appointed as acting was the academy director, so we're backfilling the academy director in the meantime with that position. So, and I could fill you in on the differences on the academy director and the assistant principal.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments related? Commissioner Malloy?
Comment just on Resolution 581. Just want to say congratulations to everyone who's retiring, but especially to Principal Nicastro and for the work that she's done for our district.
And let me also, while we're, Commissioner Santiago?
All right, is there going to be open time for after we vote, or should I say, make a comment now?
You gotta make the comment.
Okay. Oh, I'd like to also congratulate Kelly Nicastro on her retirement. She was my final principal as I exited the district. And it's pretty crazy the big circle that happens, you know, in life, seeing that I was just in your office having lunch about two years ago, and now I'm able to vote on your retirement. So I'd like to congratulate you. I'd like to congratulate you on you know, being an amazing principal, and I'll say with my personal experience with you, creating a great relationship, allowing me to have a voice. You know, when we look back at that time around 11th grade, 12th grade, I was advocating hard for the mental health literacy program, and she was one of the first people to sit down and listen and encourage me to use my voice. And you don't see that a lot of times. You know, as a leader who does not mind, you know, helping somebody else as they have a passion in something. So I would like to give a big shout out to Kelly Nicastro for the amazing relationship that you built between you and I, and the amazing things that you have done in our district. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy a lot of sunsets, a lot of vacations, and a lot of cruises.
That's dope.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Vice President LeBron.
I'm going to actually start with Mary Ferguson, who is the principal for school number 52, and I want to uplift her and all of the incredible work that she does and has done. And I will just tell you, I've known Mary since I first became a board member. However, she has some near and dear friends that are near and dear friends of mine who work for her. And so I know that it's not just me showing up as in a board commissioner hat that can testify to her leadership. I've heard it from people who intimately work with her that she's a phenomenal leader and supervisor and super supportive of her team. And I think that that is part of why the culture at 52 has thrived the way that it has because of the leadership. And so I just want to thank Mary, and I wish her all the best of luck, and please stay in touch. And I want to echo what Commissioner Santiago has also said about Principal Kelly. And I will tell you all, you know, that she's Sophia's current principal, so she's my daughter's current principal, and the challenges that Kelly has had with Sophia and how incredibly patient she is and super student-centered, because many times I know that it's my child, right? So I just want to be clear, I know my child, and so I know my child. And so shout out to not only Kelly, but all of the amazing team that has wrapped their hands around, if you will, not only my daughter, but the other girls transitioning into 7th grade, because those issues have now resolved and have calmed down through lots of mediation, both at the school level and outside the school level. And that's just real, because these are pre-hormonal teenage girls, all pecking order to be number one. And lastly, I just want to say Also, congratulations to Diane Watkins, who is one of our neighbors in the 19th Ward. I used to work with her husband too at MCC, and both of them are hardcore, committed educators, not only in this district and the college, but in this community, because the Watkins are out in the 19th Ward on their own personal time, involved in lots of things that bring awareness, resources, and education to the community. And I would be amiss if I just did not thank all of the folks retiring, but a special shout out to those three. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes. Again, congratulations to all retirees, and Kelly Nicastro, very special principal. Who was the principal before her? I forget her name.
It was Brenda Pacheco.
Brenda Pacheco, because I was at School of the Arts when Brenda Pacheco was there, and I was only there for a little while before I went over to East High School. And I remember when Kelly took the reins there, the children or the students that were there are like adults now. They're like in their 30s, maybe 28, 30 years old now. And I just remember her taking the reins and stabilizing and doing a great job. So kudos to her. Thank you.
Feel compelled to say one last thing. I have 2 of my 4 kids are at SOTA, and I want to say thank you to Kelly for the transition for one of my children that just transferred there this year. It really meant a lot, everything that you did for my child. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Santiago?
And I have to give a shout out to Mr. T. Ray. I know that he's going to take on the responsibility greatly. Loving Mr. T. Ray even when I was in high school also. So big circle for that too. I was just having lunch in his office, a little while ago, and now to be voting on his appointment. I'm excited to see the work that he's going to do, and I'm here if you need me.
That just goes to show you never know who you're going to run up into, right? Never know. So any other questions or comments related to resolutions 574 through 584? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is our board goals. I'm going to ask, can we put those up? So, Raheem, I don't know if you want to do this but I could start off with what we did is that we took everybody had top 3 or top 5, and this is what we came away with. These particular goals, increased percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are proficient on the ELA assessment from 16% in September 2023 to 40% in June 2028. All students reading by 3rd grade, increase the percentage of students proficient on the 3rd grade ELA from 15% to 50% in June 2028. Math is increase the percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are proficient in math in the New York State Math Assessment from 14% in September 2023 to 40% in June 2028. Increase the percentage of students passing the Algebra Common Core exam from 29% in September 2023 to 50% by June 2028. And then the high school board goals increase the number of students earning 5 or more credits in 9th grade from 70% in September 2023 to 90% by 2028. And then increase the percentages. I think these are the ones that are in regular print are the
Correct, they were not selected.
no, I thought they were, what?
So the ones that are bolded had 5, so the 2 for ELA and the high school goal, they had 5 commissioners
Okay.
in support of. The one for math had 4, and so the ones that are just in regular print had 2 or less commissioners come
Okay,
forward.
all right. So let me just open it up for questions or comments. Let me start with Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. The ones that are in bold, I agree with. I would love to see us have those as our goals for the year. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Griffin, you have any? questions or comments?
Yes, actually, I do. I actually didn't vote on any one of these because I felt that there was too much space between them, and not enough information for me to actually give a straight answer on yay or nay on these goals because they're just not enough information. So some of the questions I have, and relevant to what your goals are, I mean, and relevant to the numbers that you have down here as far as you got, I see here you have, I can't even see that far away. Let me
Yes, you
see.
should be able to bring it up, or
Huh?
you've got it
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yes, I said, I'm looking over there, thank you, President Elliott. I guess my biggest concern is how did you come to the 16% during, to the 40% by the 2028? What's the years in between, like 23, 24, 20, 24, 25? What is your expectation between there before we even get to 2028? We don't know what's gonna happen between that time, so can you fill that gap for me?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
what is, once the board goals are set, and we wanted to extend board goals out over a single year when we had some conversation, and our strategic plan extends over 5 years. Within that 5 years, there are going to be what we call interim goals, right? Mid goals for each year to get us to this place in 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's going to be completed with our strategic planning process, as well as then it comes down to levels of strategies that go along with it.
Okay, and with that being said, I guess when I look at trying to see something that would be beneficial for you to achieve and for us to approve, I guess I need that to see that middle part. You know, what are you thinking? We don't know what you're thinking, right? So if we don't see it on paper and it comes out to be something else, then I've approved something that I don't know. So I need more clarity there because I need to know what I'm approving, and right now I don't for that part. And then I'm looking at the KPIs, the key performance indicators. What's working and what's not working? That said, how are you going to make it better for these years that you're saying? And what are the grade levels that you're addressing, and that you're going to have better outcomes on? I need to know that part. Is that fair?
Probably not at this point, because this is the broad piece of it, and then the superintendent will be more specific to your point, or to the superintendent's point around doing those annual kinds of achievements. And so we're saying, and the board is saying, that we will move from 16% in 2023 to 40% in June 2028. Those are board goals that we have decided that we're going to do. Now, what the superintendent has to do is take them and operationalize them from year to year. So in 2023, 24, there, we will accomplish 24, 25, there will be an increase up until June 28, where we hope to reach the 40% mark.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. I want some clarity on this. What do we expect this gonna, as a board, what is our percentage that we're gonna help to get there? Because we're saying this is a big difference here. I'm looking at small numbers, and then I'm looking at a bigger number. So year by year, we're improving. We want to improve to get there, and I get that. But it's hard for me to make a decision on a goal that's gonna affect us and affect our school and affect the superintendent if I don't know what that middle part is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, even if we had something for me to look at, then I could be like, oh, okay, this is what what everybody's
Yeah.
talking about. But right now, it's just blanket for me.
No, and I
It's just
understand
not- I'm
that,
not used
right?
to that.
And I understand
Okay.
that, but we have to approve these goals first, and then the superintendent will fill in those areas, those years that you're talking about. So, Commissioner Santiago?
Absolutely. I just, I would like to suggest, I think that these are good points, but I would like to suggest, of course, and the timing, but at least a roadmap at some point presented to the board, of by this year, we plan to be there, and this is how we plan to do it. It doesn't have to be specific on the day-to-day, but at least a roadmap, and the upcoming times after we do establish these goals. Just to hear, kind of what the plans, and then we can hold you accountable to that.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yeah, and I think that's where the strategic plan comes in as far as the roadmap. And I would just, the analogy or analogy I guess I would look at is like if you brought a contractor to your home and you're like, fix my roof, or I want you to redo the kitchen, you have your goal. You're like, I know what I want to see, and you tell that person what you want to see, and then they tell you, based on their expertise, how that's going to break down. Like, this is what we're going to do, this is how long we're going to take, and that's the next part of the conversation. And then, you know, we would take it from there. But I get your point of approving a goal and saying, okay, do it, and don't know what they're going to do. So,
Yeah.
but the strategic plan will break it down for us.
Yeah.
I was looking at these, and I heard when we were deliberating previously around the number of goals and being smart, and we have so many things going on with the reconfiguration and blah, da, 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 da. And I'm wondering, based on that conversation, someone brought up the point of maybe having 3 goals, because I'm cool with all the goals that are listed here, and it's 4. It's 4, but do we need to make this 3? Would it be more manageable in that regard? I just wanted to get everybody's thought on that.
I also agree with that, Camille. I think it's too many, and that's what makes it more cumbersome for me. I think, you know, when you're trying to reach something, you're trying to hit a goal, you shouldn't have it too much, because too much is just too much.
Yeah.
I think.
Just remember that it's 5 years, so, you know, Commissioner, Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, I'm going to support the bulleted ones, the 2 under ELA, the 1 bulleted, or bolded, I should say, but also bulleted under math. The last one, I would support that 4th goal, because I actually think that if they're successful with ELA and math, that next one is naturally should be occurring. If the increase is happening in ELA and math testing, by the time they actually hit the 9th grade, that number should have by default increased. So I would personally, I would be okay with keeping 4, although I would not support any more than 4. And then lastly, you know, this is where I think we have gotten in trouble in the past, right? With wanting to be too detailed into the weeds of how this is actually rolled out and implemented. That is for y'all. Y'all get paid for that, and they get paid big bucks. We're not getting paid the big bucks. We can at least put this in writing to say these are going to be the goals, but I do think that what's going to be different this year is how these goals are then aligned and shown in the budget. And this is what we're going to need. So I look to the superintendent to be like, hey, board, and this year, and we're going to have a little bit of a different budget process as we have to sort of adapt to have this be a separate presentation of how the board goals are embedded within the budget and how they tie, because that has never happened. So I would be looking to the budget to see what's being funded or how the dollars are allocated for this year to support that and so forth as we move forward over the next 5 years.
Excellent point, Vice President. Commissioner Patterson, you have any questions?
I do. I'm going to start with one question, and the rest is just statements. So I kind of went through this with a fine-tooth comb this afternoon. So the only question I have at this point in time for the superintendent are these percentages current baselines that you use here?
So, yeah, so the, excuse me, the 16,
Mhm.
the 15, the 4, that's currently where we're sitting, right?
Okay.
That's why we say, I have September, but it says here, added from our
That's
last
okay.
conversation, that September 23 is the current baseline numbers.
So going forward, again, these aren't necessarily in any order, but for me personally, there's a bit of a role confusion as far as the board itself and how they initiate the goals, and then we meet with the superintendent and fine tune those together. So I think initially, we didn't meet just as a board, you know, without the superintendent to discuss these, and then bring him in on what we thought. Let's see. For the first one example, English language arts. Well, let me go back. So there's 7 goals, and we talked about this before. 7 goals is totally too much. It's just too many goals. We need to narrow our focus. And if we have 7 goals, that means we as a board, we're going to have to do a lot of checking and fact checking as far as statistics and data and things like that. It's going to be a lot of work if you have 7 goals.
So Commissioner, we're looking at the ones that are bulleted. Are you okay with the ones that are bulleted?
I'm not.
Excuse me.
I'm going to go through this
Bolded,
first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. I'm not even anywhere near that right now, so I just need to
Oh,
go
okay.
through
Okay.
my research here.
All right.
So roughly from what it's indicating to me is that there's like a 5% increase for each of the 5 years. Am I correct in that, Superintendent?
About a little bit.
Yeah, 4 and 5.
8%.
About 4.8 per year.
So for
Yeah, roughly.
2023, about 5% on.
Each year for the 5 years. Right. Again, what are the inputs and outputs that you will use to get us to these percentages? Or I could also say, what advice does the administration have to get the district there? So I'd be interested in that, and maybe we can, our clerk can, put these in a question log for later. Let's see. Again, I went over goals. Goals recommended would be 1 to 3. I just think we're reaching far and wide if we go any higher than that. Yeah, can we go to 5? Yes, but 7 is definitely out of the question. Goals don't change. We had this question at the last meeting, or maybe the one before, relative to goals. And, the goals don't change until we meet them or they expire. We maintain the goals again until they expire. I spoke relative to interim goals, which do change. But the goals itself for that 5-year period, they should not change as recommended. We can change the measurables. Again, those are called interim goals. There should be a progress monitoring report that's done quarterly by the superintendent. And the research suggests a 3 to 7% increase each year, so we've done that. And, what should we be asking? What is the strategy to get us there? It should be our question, to the superintendent and to the staff. Again, what are the strategies you're going to use to get us to these percentages? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Griffin?
Okay, thank you, President Elliott. Because he's gonna give us the additional information later, to fill in where it's a little open and not closed, for me, it's closed-ended. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna select two of the goals, and that is, increase the percentage of students under ELA, those 2 bullets. And then the math, the first bullet. And to Commissioner Patterson's point, I just need to, if we can put these questions down, and what are the KPIs, so we know what the key performances are, what we're actually working towards, and how are we getting to the percentages, which is piggybacking also with Commissioner Patterson was saying, and then making sure the teacher development. So if we can just put those questions in there so that they won't be missed in the next to achieve these goals that we have, because definitely the teachers need to have some form of professional development. And I think that was it. Thank you.
So let me just clarify. All of this is going to be in the strategic plan. So it don't necessarily have to be in the question log per se. I mean, it can, don't misunderstand me, but it will be a part of the strategic plan when it's developed. So it will be pretty exhaustive. We will be getting that, and it will align up to whatever goals that this board decide that we're going to do. Commissioner Santiago?
Yeah, my support goes towards the 4 bolded points, and not the ones that aren't bolded. I think that those 4 are solid in itself.
All right. So, any other questions or comments related to that? Yeah, I could vote. We could vote because we can. So we moving it now. How do we do this? Can we vote on it tonight and move it to to the business meeting, or if we just vote on tonight, we're good?
I think the board can't actually do either.
Okay.
You can vote on it tonight if the board is in agreement, or you can move it to the business meeting, whatever
All
the
right.
board would prefer.
Thank you. So is there a motion that we approve the 4 bulleted
I say bulleted, bolded. The bolded goals. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And if I'm not saying that right, can you all wordsmith that for me?
Ones that our board clerk has generously put a bolded at bullet at the ends of the sentences. Yeah,
It's a dark lettering.
Yeah.
right.
You moving it?
I moved it.
Did I second?
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hallelujah. Any nays? No. Nays?
I didn't catch which ones you guys went with.
Of the ones that are bolded, Commissioner.
Bolded. Okay.
The bold and the beautiful.
Ones under English, math, and high school. You okay with that, sir?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Lord, look at God. That's all I can say. Look at God. Is there any other, doesn't look like there's nothing else on the agenda?
Motion.
No executive
Second.
committee? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, we got it all right. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you.